Stage, I want to just set up this next panel, our final panel, which will be just a half hour with a little story. And this panel is called Nevada's Next Steps, Locally Based Strategies. And the story I want to tell is about a painting that is in my office in Reno. I love oil paintings. I love landscapes. And this is a weird painting from a lot of people's standpoints. It's about a 4-foot by 5-foot painting, the largest painting that I have. And it's a 1979 painting of the Las Vegas Valley, done in great detail, where I can pick out the hacienda and the dunes and the landmark and lots of land that's not developed. And I bought that painting because that's about the time that I started my career at Harrah's. And like many in the gaming industry, Las Vegas was a very fertile place for us. We added onto casinos, we added casinos, and I matched that painting up with a photograph, an orthogonal, that's a Gary Loveman word, that means bird's eye view, orthogonal painting or photograph of the Las Vegas Valley much more recently. And when you line them up, if you did what I did for a living, you're extremely proud of how this city has changed and how this valley has changed. And what an economic engine it was. The jobs that were created, the capital that was invested, the families that moved here and learned to love this state and will never go back to where they came from. So the question that I have for Glenn, as he tells us about new initiatives by the Nevada Development Authority, and Jack, as he talks about workforce development, is what's my next picture going to look like of Las Vegas? Is it going to look more like 1979? Or is it going to look more like 2010? That photograph that I took. And will those jobs, that enormous asset that we have sitting out there of 200,000 people unemployed, are they going to get back into jobs? Are those buildings going to have the lights on? Are there going to be new buildings filled with jobs and employment, and will there be new homes filled with families? Next steps, local strategies. Glenn?
Well, I didn't realize I was going to have to answer a question before I started, but the answer from my perspective is we have an incredible opportunity here now, and I think we'll give you some ideas today about how we might be able to go about that. I want to thank you for your attendance today. We appreciate the opportunity to present a comprehensive statewide economic development plan. This plan is the product of about 7 or 8 months now of work between representatives from the Las Vegas Chamber of Commerce and the Nevada Development Authority. We felt, as the two leading business organizations here in Southern Nevada, that it was imperative that we offered up some constructive suggestions about how we might go forward. I will tell you that this plan is designed to be a working document. We don't have all the answers here today, but what we do have is a place to start the discussion about how we embrace the culture of economic diversification and development in our state. Now, I'm going to present our plan today from the perspective of Southern Nevada, but this is a model that applies equally well to other parts of the state. So how do we get to where we are to where we want to be? Well, let's put this all in context. Let's look at 3 things. Number 1, Las Vegas is one of, if not the least diversified community from an economic perspective in the country. We have to change that. Number 2, as you've heard over and over again today, this is a long-term proposition. We're not going to change things overnight. We need to embrace that. And thirdly, and I think the most important thing, is that this has to be a community plan. Okay, it can't be a chamber plan and Nevada Development Authority. The state can't make this happen. As a community, we have to embrace the culture of economic development. In terms of where we are today, I think that's pretty straightforward. A lot of the challenges that we've ignored over the years are now painfully obvious. And to yet again quote a frequently used expression, we have to take advantage of this crisis in order to make sure that we're diversifying away from our reliance on the gaming and the construction industries. In terms of where we want to be, I think we're all going to agree. We want a better quality of life. We want better education. We want better health care. We want more jobs in our community. The question becomes, how do we get there? Now, when representatives from the Chamber and the NDA got together, we decided that we wanted to look at economic development from the broadest perspective possible. So we're not just looking at attracting businesses through relocation or startup. We're looking also at retaining the existing businesses that we have. We want businesses that are here to expand, and we want to be able to diversify our economy. So how do we do that? We have to start with a comprehensive plan. Now, in our plan, the first thing that we would do is establish a cohesive economic development structure. Now, we do that on a centralized basis at the state level, where we would provide oversight and leadership. The idea is that a board would be created. Representatives on this board would be from the North, the South, and from the rural communities. Members of this board have to have a thorough understanding of economic development and also the importance of incentives to the economic development process. This board would accept monies from the state that were to go towards economic development, and they would allocate those funds accordingly. Now, the actual day-to-day workings of economic development in our state would be decentralized. We'd have 3 separate independent regional agencies, again, one in the north, one in the south, and one in the rural communities. Now, we believe that because of the cultural, the physical, and the economic differences between each one of the regions in the state, that no one agency can really oversee that process. In addition, we think the people that live and work in these various regions are going to have a much better understanding of what the strengths and weaknesses are in that region, as well as what the needs are for their particular region. Now, a very important part of this first step is that we set up an accountability structure. And we believe that each one of these agencies should report to this larger board on at least a quarterly basis. This is something that we currently do at the NDA. We report to the Interim Finance Committee on a quarterly basis, and we think transparency is absolutely a best practice in this matter. The next thing we need to do is take steps to create jobs immediately where possible. Now, each one of these 3 agencies would be required to submit to this board a strategic plan that had a short-term component where the primary focus there is creating jobs and also to bring businesses here as quickly as we can. It would have an interim component where they begin to explore possible clusters that would be appropriate for their region, as well as execute plans to start to bring those clusters and attract them here. And then we need a longer-term plan where we more fully embrace the cluster concept. And from the perspective of Southern Nevada, we think it's important to rebrand Las Vegas. We don't want to take anything away from tourism, but we think that the message needs to be Las Vegas is a great place to visit as well as a great place to do business. We need to develop a Nevada business retention and expansion program. We talked about these things earlier. It's an important part of economic development. We've listed here several different strategies that we think would make sense for us. This list is by no means intended to be exhaustive. I think if you got a lot of smart people in the room, there's a number of very good common sense ideas that we could apply to be successful. We also need to be doing things that help economic development on a near term and a longer term. One of those things that we need to do is make it easier to invest in Nevada's core infrastructure. Here's some ideas that we think make a lot of sense from that perspective. One of those items is to require a 5-year capital plan for all state agencies. We've got to get away from thinking in 2-year increments. We need a longer-term plan. That doesn't mean that we can't change that plan as circumstances and conditions dictate, but we have to have a roadmap to where we're going. We then need to execute a regional planning effort. I talked about these 3 regions, their strategic plans. I think we purposely did not identify who these 3 agencies would be. And while we didn't do that, I think at least one of the agencies that should be considered for Southern Nevada is the Nevada Development Authority. And the reason that I say that is we've been doing this for 50 years. We already have the organization structure in place, so we don't have to recreate the wheel. Our particular board is a public-private partnership. All the municipalities are represented on our board. We also have very important constituencies represented on our board, anywhere from healthcare to education to the gaming industry, banking, the chambers on our board as well. I think it's important to note that we have a demonstrated track record of getting great returns on the invested capital that we receive from the state. And I also think it's important to note that we currently generate somewhere in the $700,000 to $800,000 range from revenues from our membership that we use for economic development. Those revenues could conceivably go somewhere else. The important thing is that as an independent agency, if the state determines that we're not doing the job, then they need to get somebody there that can. Under any circumstances, whether it's the NDA or someone else, we're hoping that a lot of the characteristics that we have are used in determining the appropriate agencies going forward. And then lastly, we need to identify and pursue consensus clusters. We have already started our process in terms of executing our strategic plan. We've identified 11 different potential clusters for our community that we think could make some sense. Now, our sense is that over time, we're going to call this number down. The market's going to determine how well, or which of these are the most appropriate clusters, but this is where we think we should start. Ladies and gentlemen, we can't possibly begin to talk to you in any meaningful way about a comprehensive, long-term strategic plan for economic development in our state in 15 minutes. Can't be done. We, about 6 weeks ago, we had a group of people that we talked to, various business and civic leaders here in our community, and we gave them a presentation of about an hour and a half, all right? At the end of that hour and a half, we still didn't feel we were close to giving them all the information that we felt that they really needed. They came away from that, though, very encouraged. I would say the vast majority of those civic and business leaders either supported or strongly supported what we were trying to do as a community plan. I have lived in Southern Nevada my entire business career, nearly 38 years. And for nearly 38 years, we've been talking and talking and talking about economic development. And if there was any reason to do something now, the best evidence we've ever had is what's happened to this community over the last 3 years. Here's our concern. We really believe that the Las Vegas economy is starting to turn. Not a lot, a little bit. PricewaterhouseCoopers recently completed a study where they said that they think that by the year 2014, the Las Vegas gaming industry will be back to where it was in 2007. Now, that may not sound very impressive to you, but you have to keep in mind that 2007 was the absolute peak of the last gaming cycle, so that's pretty good. We have a situation where over time, I understand I only got a minute. Phil took some of my time. Here's our frustration, all right? We're sitting here in January. It's probably going to take 4 or 5 months to get through this budget and set aside a meaningful amount for economic development in our state. Okay? After that, it's going to take a while to set up some oversight. capabilities. It's going to take some time for these strategic plans to be submitted and approved. And then it's going to take some time once these agencies actually get the money to begin to implement their strategy. We're talking about over a year. All right, I am an investor. I want to buy things when they're cheap. We have a lot of challenges in our community today, but those same challenges create real opportunities for businesses that want to move here. Look at our commercial real estate. It's an incredible value. Our residential real estate, unbelievable. And if you have a business and you want to move here and you're looking for employees, we have a lot of employees that are ready to go to work today, well-qualified employees. We're lucky. In our discussions with Governor Sandoval, Majority Leader Horsford, Speaker Oseguera, Lieutenant Governor Krolicki, these guys get it. I think they really understand that we need economic development to go forward. In our perfect world, what we'd like to see is all of them stand up and say, you know what, we support the concept of Nevada 2.0. We want to set aside a meaningful budget for economic development in our state, and we want to go forward with your help. The only way that they can do that is if this community and the citizens of this state get behind them and support those efforts. I hope that we can count on you to do that. I can assure you that the NDA and the Las Vegas Chamber stand ready to help in any way that we can in this effort. Thank you for your time and attention.